What if I told you that the most dangerous person in America isn't a criminal, a hacker, or even a guy who puts pineapple on pizza? It's someone who grows their own tomatoes, someone who catches rainwater, someone who dares to exist without asking permission first. The government loves you when you're consuming, borrowing, and begging, but the moment you decide to live independently, that's when things get interesting. Suddenly, you're a threat, a rebel, a statistical anomaly that doesn't fit into the spreadsheet of control. And here's the kicker: they won't arrest you for being free. They'll just make freedom illegal, one permit at a time. They'll smile, hand you a citation, and tell you it's for your own good. They'll regulate your chickens, tax your rainwater, and fine you for living too simply. Because in the land of the free, freedom has terms and conditions. Think about it. You can smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol until your liver begs for mercy, and eat fast food that's basically a heart attack wrapped in a cartoon mascot. But collect rainwater, build a tiny house, grow food in your front yard. Suddenly you're a menace to society, a code violator, a person who needs to be stopped before you inspire others with your dangerous ideas about self-sufficiency. Before we dive into this beautiful dystopia, where liberty comes with a price tag and an application fee, hit that like button. Not because I care about your validation, but because the algorithm is a jealous god and it demands sacrifice. It feeds on engagement, like the state feeds on permits. Subscribe if you believe liberty is cool, but also understand that YouTube metrics are cooler. Freedom is great, but monetization is greater. Independence is lovely, but ad revenue is lovelier. We're all trapped in systems, my friend. Might as well make them work for us while we expose them. And drop a comment telling me the craziest regulation you've encountered. Because I guarantee someone out there has been fined for something so absurd it sounds like satire but is actually just Tuesday in America. Let me guess. You've thought about it, haven't you? Living off-grid, building a tiny house, starting a garden that actually produces food, instead of just Instagram content and mild disappointment, collecting rainwater like some kind of hydration-based criminal mastermind, plotting against big water. Maybe you've dreamed about solar panels on your roof, chickens in your backyard, a life where you're not chained to bills, subscriptions, and the monthly anxiety of checking your bank account. A life where you produce more than you consume, where you're the master of your own little domain. But then reality slaps you in the face with a manila envelope full of regulations. You can't build that shed because it violates code 7-3.9 subsection, "We own your backyard." You can't harvest rainwater because apparently the sky belongs to the state now, and clouds have landlords. You can't even raise chickens without filling out paperwork that requires 3 notarized signatures, a blood oath, and a character reference from your chickens. You wanted simplicity. They gave you bureaucracy. You wanted independence. They gave you dependencies with late fees. You wanted to opt out. They said cute, but no. You wanted to live free. They said define free, and also here's a permit application. And the worst part? You start to feel crazy for wanting something so basic. You start to think maybe they're right. Maybe you do need permission to catch rain. Maybe independence really is dangerous. Maybe freedom is actually just irresponsibility with better marketing. But deep down, you know something's broken. You can feel it every time you pay a bill for something that should be free. Every time you need permission for something that should be your right. Every time the system reminds you that you're not actually in control of your own life. Here's the truth hiding under the welcome mat of modern civilization, tucked between the fine print and the forgotten amendments. Governments don't hate you. They just hate when you don't need them. Because a person who doesn't need permission, permits, or programs is a person they can't control, tax, or track. And that terrifies them more than a balanced budget, more than an informed electorate, more than an audit from the department they forgot existed. The entire system is built on dependency. Your dependency. They need you to need them. They need you to wake up every day and participate in the grand theater of modern life, where you trade your labor for currency, your currency for necessities, and your necessities come with terms of service written by lawyers who bill by the comma. Every regulation is a hook. Every permit is a leash. Every license is a reminder that your freedom isn't a right. It's a rental agreement subject to change without notice. So today, we're exposing exactly why your vegetable garden is a national security threat. Why solar panels make you a domestic extremist. Why catching rainwater makes you a water pirate. And why the most revolutionary act in 21st century America is just being okay without them, being content, being independent, being free in a way that doesn't require their approval. Buckle up, This is going to hurt, but like ripping off a band-aid made of bureaucracy and broken promises. Let's go. Picture this. You own land, like you actually paid for it. Cold, hard cash or decades of mortgage payments. It's yours. Title, deed, the whole capitalist fantasy. Property taxes prove it every year when they remind you that ownership is actually just premium renting. So naturally, you decide to build a small cabin on your own property. Nothing crazy, just wood, nails, and the basic human desire for shelter. Something humans have been doing since we climbed down from trees and decided caves needed better lighting. Wrong. You need a permit, then another permit for the permit, then an inspection to verify you're worthy of the permit, then a variance hearing where your neighbors, people who don't even know your name, who you've never met, who wouldn't help you move a couch, get to vote on whether you deserve to hammer nails into wood you purchased with money you earned. Here's the fun part. The government tells you it's for safety. Building codes protect you from shoddy construction, they say. Inspections ensure quality. Regulations save lives. And sure, some of that is true, sometimes, when it's not just revenue generation disguised as concern, but really, it's about dependency. Every permit creates a checkpoint. Every inspection creates leverage. Every regulation creates a reason for you to stay plugged into the system, compliant, and paying fees, like a good little economic unit contributing to the GDP. It's like a gym membership you never signed up for, but they keep charging you anyway, and if you cancel, they condemn your house. And then they charge you for the condemnation. And then they charge you to appeal the condemnation. It's fees all the way down, the reality nobody wants to say out loud. You don't own land. You rent it from the state. And the moment you stop playing by their rules, stop paying their fees, stop asking permission, they remind you who the real landlord is. They remind you that property rights are really just property privileges, and privileges can be revoked. And the people who enforce this? They're not villains. They're just doing their jobs. They're code enforcement officers who genuinely believe they're helping. They're bureaucrats who think they're protecting the community. They're cogs in a machine so big nobody can see the whole thing. So everybody just focuses on their little part and assumes it all makes sense somewhere up the chain. Let's talk about rain. You know, that thing that falls from the sky for free? That natural phenomenon that's been happening since Earth got an atmosphere? Yeah, in some states, collecting it is illegal. I'm not kidding. There are places in America where catching water that literally falls on your roof is considered theft. Theft from whom? The clouds, God, the Department of Liquid Revenue, some bureaucrat who claimed dibs on precipitation back in 1870-something. The logic is beautifully absurd. They claim rainwater belongs to downstream water rights holders, which sounds official and legal until you realize it just means corporations and municipal systems want to control every single drop so they can charge you for it later, process it, treat it, and sell it back to you at a premium with added fluoride and the faint taste of infrastructure failure. Western states are especially wild about this. Colorado, Utah, Nevada, places where water is precious and therefore must be controlled, regulated, and monetized. You can't just be out here catching sky water like some kind of hydration bandit. That's their sky water. You're stealing from the future, from the rivers, from the shareholders. So here's the metaphor. Imagine if breathing too much air was illegal because the wind farm down the road had dibs on the oxygen. Imagine if they metered your inhalations and sent you a bill every month. Imagine if taking a deep breath required a permit and 3 forms of ID. That's where we are. That's the level of control we're talking about. And the punchline? They'll let you buy bottled water that was literally taken from a public aquifer, sometimes during droughts, marked up 3,000%, and sold back to you in a plastic tomb that'll outlive your grandchildren. Nestle can drain entire water tables, but you can't catch rain. Coca-Cola can bottle millions of gallons, but your rain barrel is criminal behavior. The contradiction is so perfect, it's almost beautiful. They've convinced us that water falling from the sky isn't ours, but water pumped from the ground by corporations is available for purchase at every gas station. They've made independence illegal and dependency convenient, and most people don't even question it anymore. We just accept that rain belongs to someone else, that nature has owners. That freedom is something you buy, not something you have. Independence isn't just discouraged, it's monetized out of existence, one droplet at a time. Solar panels, the ultimate symbol of freedom, right? Generate your own power. Tell the utility company to kick rocks. Live like a sun-worshipping electricity wizard who doesn't need their fossil fuels or their monthly bills or their threats to disconnect service. Except in many places, going fully off-grid is either illegal or so heavily restricted it might as well be. Some states require you to stay connected to the grid even if you don't use it, even if your solar panels produce more than you need, even if you never flip a switch powered by their system. You have to pay connection fees for a service you're actively avoiding. Why? Because your independence is their revenue loss. Every person who stops buying electricity is a customer who escaped the subscription model of modern life, and they can't have that. The utility companies lobbied for these laws. They convinced legislators that staying connected to the grid is a public safety issue, a community responsibility, a requirement for civilized living. Here's the contradiction so blatant it hurts. They tell you to go green, save the planet, reduce your carbon footprint. Governments offer tax incentives for solar installations. They run ads about renewable energy. They host climate summits and make promises about clean power. But the second you actually do it without their permission, without their oversight, without staying tethered to their system, suddenly there are codes, inspections, and mandatory interconnection agreements. Suddenly your independence is a problem that needs solving with regulations. It's like being told to lose weight, but every time you try, the government shows up with pizza and a contract that says you have to eat at least 3 slices per month or face penalties. You're encouraged to be healthy as long as you buy your health from approved vendors. Some states won't let you disconnect from the grid because they claim your house becomes uninhabitable without utility service. Think about that. Your house with electricity from solar panels, water from a well, heat from wood or propane is somehow uninhabitable. But a house connected to failing infrastructure and rolling blackouts, perfectly safe, totally habitable. You're free to be independent, as long as you're still dependent. You're allowed to generate your own power, as long as you keep paying them. You can opt out, but not really, not completely, not in a way that matters. And if you try to fight it, good luck. You're up against utility companies with legal teams bigger than small countries. You're fighting regulations written by the industries they're supposed to regulate. You're arguing with a system designed to make you give up. Tiny houses were supposed to be the answer. Affordable, mobile, minimalist, cute. The dream of living simply without debt, without 30-year mortgages, without crushing financial obligations that turn you into a wage slave just to afford shelter. And governments hated them immediately, with a passion usually reserved for actual crimes. Zoning laws, minimum square footage requirements, RV restrictions, foundation mandates. They threw everything at the tiny house movement like it was an invading army threatening the sacred suburbs. Why? Because a person living in a tiny house isn't buying a 30-year mortgage, isn't paying property taxes on a bloated suburban box filled with rooms they don't use, isn't trapped in the cycle of consumption that funds city budgets and generates economic activity. So they made it illegal to park your own home on your own land in most places. You can own a house, you can own land, but combining them in a way that doesn't generate maximum tax revenue, that's where they draw the line. That's felony-adjacent behavior. The metaphor here is perfect. You're allowed to dream small, as long as you pay big. You can have less, as long as it costs more. You can simplify your life, as long as it's complicated by regulations. Code enforcement shows up with tape measures and clipboards. They measure your square footage. They check your foundation. They verify your sewage connections. And if you don't comply, eviction, fines, condemnation. They'll make you homeless to enforce housing regulations. They'll destroy your shelter to ensure you have proper shelter. And the officials doing this? They genuinely believe they're helping. They think minimum square footage requirements prevent slums. They think foundation mandates ensure stability. They think they're protecting you from your own bad decisions, from the danger of living too simply, from the horror of being content with less. Meanwhile, you can buy an RV twice the size of a tiny house, park it in the same spot, and nobody blinks. You can live in a van down by the river, and it's quirky. But build a tiny house with real walls and insulation. That's when society collapses. Grow your own food. Sounds wholesome, right? Tomatoes, lettuce, herbs, maybe some chickens for eggs. Real little house on the prairie energy. Self-sufficiency. Connection to the land. Knowing where your food comes from. Nope. HOA violations. Livestock bans. Front yard garden prohibitions. Aesthetic compliance requirements. Some cities have literally banned vegetable gardens visible from the street because they're aesthetically displeasing, or lower property values, or make the neighborhood look poor. Translation: your independence is ugly. Conformity is beautiful. Grass lawns that require chemicals, water, and constant maintenance. Gorgeous. A garden that feeds you. Disgusting. A lawn that produces nothing but more lawn. Peak civilization. Food growing in dirt. We've regressed to barbarism. And if you try to sell that food, cottage food laws, health inspections, commercial kitchen requirements, liability insurance, labeling regulations. The barriers are so high that small-scale food independence is essentially criminalized unless you can afford to jump through regulatory hoops designed for industrial operations producing millions of units. Here's the punchline that writes itself. You can buy poison in a box at the grocery store, no questions asked. Food with ingredients you can't pronounce, products that sit on shelves for years without rotting because even bacteria won't touch them. That's fine. That's approved. That's got a barcode and everything. But sell homemade jam at a farmer's market without the right permits. You're basically El Chapo. You're a danger to public health. You're operating an illegal food business. Never mind that humans have been making and sharing food for thousands of years without FDA approval. Never mind that your jam is probably safer than anything in aisle 7. The system doesn't want you fed. It wants you dependent, hungry for their solutions, compliant at the checkout line, grateful for the privilege of buying food that traveled thousands of miles and went through 12 corporations before landing on your plate. And chickens? Don't even get me started. Cities ban backyard chickens because of noise, disease, predators, property values. But dogs that bark all night? Totally fine. Cats that destroy local bird populations? No problem. Chickens that produce fresh eggs and eat your kitchen scraps? Absolutely not. Too dangerous, too country, too independent. And then there's education. Because if you can control how children learn, you control the future. Homeschooling terrifies them, not because it doesn't work. Studies show homeschooled kids often outperform their public school peers, not because it's dangerous, not because parents are incompetent, but because it's independent. It's education without government oversight, without standardized testing, without institutional control. So states regulate it heavily. Some require regular testing. Some require certified teachers. Some require approval of curriculum. Some make it so burdensome that only wealthy families can afford it. And some states make it nearly impossible, forcing parents to jump through hoops while the public system graduates kids who can't read. The irony? Public schools fail kids every single day, but suggest teaching your own children, and suddenly, you're suspect. Suddenly you need to prove you're qualified to educate your own offspring. Suddenly the state knows better than you what your children need. Because educated, independent thinkers who learn outside the system, they're harder to control. They ask uncomfortable questions. They don't automatically accept authority. They think for themselves, and that's dangerous. And here's where it gets wild, where the absurd becomes terrifying, where comedy turns to horror. Because all of these restrictions, all of this control, they're escalating. More permits, more fees, more regulations that make independence functionally impossible for average people. They're not coming for your freedom with tanks and troops. They're coming with paperwork and fines, death by 1,000 permits, oppression through administrative exhaustion. They'll regulate you into submission, fine you into compliance, and bureaucratize you into giving up. And the genius part? They make you enforce it on yourself. They make you afraid to break rules you never agreed to. They make compliance feel like common sense and rebellion feel like insanity. They make you police your neighbors, report violations, participate in your own oppression. But here's the truth nobody wants to admit. The people who scare them most aren't the ones storming capitals or burning flags or posting manifestos online. It's the quiet ones, the ones who plant gardens, catch rain, and build small. The ones who homeschool their kids and generate their own power. The ones who prove you don't actually need the system to survive. Because every independent person is a walking billboard that says, you can leave. Every person living free is proof that the system is optional. Every self-sufficient family is evidence that dependency isn't inevitable. And they can't tax that. They can't regulate that out of existence completely. They can make it harder, more expensive, more complicated, but they can't kill the idea that freedom is possible, that independence is achievable, that you don't need permission to live. So here's the recap, the TLDR, the bottom line. Governments don't hate you, they hate that you don't need them. Every permit is a leash. Every regulation is a reminder that your freedom is rented, not owned. And every person who lives independently is a crack in the foundation of control, a glitch in the matrix, a problem that needs solving. But here's the good news, the hope in this darkness. They're scared, because no amount of paperwork can stop an idea whose time has come. And the idea that you can live well, live simply, and live free without asking permission, that's contagious, that's viral. That's revolutionary in the most dangerous way possible. People are waking up, slowly, quietly, one garden at a time, one solar panel at a time, one tiny house at a time. They're opting out, tuning out, living differently, and the system can't stop all of them. So, what's next? Well, in the next video, we're diving into the craziest places people have gone to escape this insanity. Off-grid communities in the desert, seasteading platforms in international waters. One guy who literally bought an island just to avoid zoning laws and lives like a modern pirate king. Click it now. Before I make you watch a 10-hour documentary on municipal code violations without snacks or bathroom breaks. Before the algorithm decides you don't deserve freedom content and sends you back to cat videos. Before Elon buys the rain, patents the sun, and starts charging subscription fees for photosynthesis. You've been warned. Stay curious, stay free, and maybe plant a tomato. Just check your local ordinances first, or don't. Live dangerously. Be ungovernable. See you in the next one.